Hello YouTube, welcome back to another alternate history video. And today I got the 2000 presidential election, which of course was held between George W. Bush and Al Gore, the vice president. But in this alternate scenario, I got Mitt Romney, who was not a 2000 candidate, and Bernie Sanders, the current senator from Vermont, who was also not a 2000 candidate. But I got them if they did decide to run in 2000 and got their party's nominations. Now, of course, both of these men have been presidential candidates quite a few times. Of course, Romney was the 2012 nominee, and Bernie Sanders tried to get the nomination twice, but failed to Hillary and Biden. But like I said, in this alternate scenario, I got both of them as the nominees in 2000. Now, of course, 2000, you were coming off 2 terms of Bill Clinton, and it was a close, tight election between Bush and Gore. Of course, Clinton was pretty popular at the end of his term, despite the Lewinsky scandal. He was still pretty popular with like a balanced budget and things like that. So it gave Gore a pretty good shot of winning Democrats a third term, and it came so close, but Bush just barely edged him out in Florida, which of course was a controversial state with a lot of recounts, and so close that it was separated by over 500 votes, I believe. So of course, threw the election to like the Supreme Court, and they ruled in favor of Bush. And of course, like I said, it's very controversial. But in this alternate scenario, I don't see this election being close, especially with Sanders being the nominee. Now, if you're a Bernie bro watching, of course you would want Sanders to win, but really the Bernie bros, no offense to y'all, but you're really more of a small minority, especially in the Democratic Party, because most of the Democratic Party is made up of the establishment. Even Bernie bros can admit that the Democratic Party is made up of establishment politicians and donors, so of course they're always in favor of the Hillary Biden types. So I don't see Sanders doing well in this, and plus Sanders considers himself a socialist, obviously won't go over well with a lot of suburban voters and working class voters. Now, Bernie did win Wisconsin and Michigan in 2016, but I guess you can argue that he ran more of a populist, like kind of like what Trump did, so he was able to appeal in the Rust Belt. But I believe with it being 2000, definitely, I don't think it would go over well, being a more different climate and different political climate back then. And of course, Romney is just your typical establishment Republican, so he would probably win this election pretty easily if I had to guess. Well, I would say for certain, definitely, like for the reasons I mentioned, Bernie would just be presented as too far left, and he would turn off a lot of suburban voters, I believe, especially suburban women. They wouldn't like that democratic socialism. So like I said, if you're a Bernie bro watching this, then I apologize, but it's not going to be favorable towards him, I can tell you that. And I am using a different software, Screen-O-Matic, to record this, so I'm hoping this fixes any of the audio issues I've had recently, because of course some of my videos you can hear like audio glitches and things, and I hope this helps, but we'll see, hopefully. But anyway, getting into the scenario, I believe, of course, the typical Republican states will go for Romney, just like we did in 2012, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, very Mormon heavy. Being a Mormon himself, he resonated great with these folks, better than Trump did. And I believe he went to Arizona pretty solidly, as well as Colorado was a Republican state back then. And I just don't see Bernie having great appeal here. Of course, he won it in his present day runs, like in the primary, but in a general election, especially with it being 2000, I still see it going Romney pretty solidly. Now, New Mexico was won by Gore, and I believe Bernie won it in the primary. Maybe Bernie could still win it, especially if he gets decent Latino support, because he actually did have pretty good Latino support in Nevada in the 2020 primary. So I could actually maybe see Bernie pulling out New Mexico, but I think it would be a close one like it even was. And I might actually give it to him. Now, it probably could go Romney, like I said, but Bernie actually had pretty good appeal here. And of course, like I said, it was won by Gore, even though it was really close, I believe, only by 300 and some votes. But I could actually see Bernie possibly pulling it off, since he actually did have good appeal in the state when he had his primary runs, especially if he gets decent Latino support like he did in Nevada. But Nevada, of course, in a general election was more favored towards Republicans back then, so I believe that would go Romney. However, since it went for Bush both times, however, I believe Bernie could win these other states of Washington, Oregon, California, are typical Democratic progressive states that have really been Democrat for years now, so I believe Sanders will hold on to those, as well as Hawaii. He had great support here in the primaries. Of course, I believe Alaska would go for Romney, as well as other states, Dakotas, all of Nebraska, even the second, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And I'm just going to go ahead and get all the South to Romney because Bernie was walloped here in the primaries by Hillary and Biden. So I don't see him making these states competitive: South Carolina, North Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, even Florida. He was just walloped in the primary here, so he's not going to win them in the general election because Democratic socialism will not go over well in the South, especially Virginia, my home state. That's easily going to go for Romney because Bernie did not make competitive here at all in the primary, and as well as Missouri. But Illinois, however, will go for Sanders, I'm pretty sure, as well as New York and all of the Northeast, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, D.C. Even though Bernie is not liked by the Democratic establishment, it would still go for him. Probably lukewarm support, but I believe he'd still win D.C. because they would vote for a Democrat if it was a glass of water. That's how Democrat D.C. is. And I believe Romney would win Indiana. I believe he probably would win Ohio since Bush won them. Like I said, Bernie would just turn off suburban voters because Bernie, I don't even think, won Ohio in the primary, so he's definitely probably not going to win in the general election. Now, I think he did lose Pennsylvania to Hillary in the general election, so he'd probably lose here too because they would turn off the Philadelphia suburbanites. They wouldn't like his democratic socialist policies, and of course they're more about fair trade, which is what Trump ran on. He was able to win in the state, so I believe that would go for Romney. Now, Gore did win Iowa, and I believe Bernie won it because he actually had decent appeal here. He, however, lost it to Biden, I believe. So, like I said, I believe that would go for Romney, actually, because, like I said, just as far left policies he'd be portrayed as would not go over well in the states. The advertisements would write themselves. Romney would be effective at that. I believe, however, Minnesota would go for him because it's always been a Democratic stronghold since '76, and they did win the primaries here. Well, I believe Biden actually won the primary here in 2020, but I believe it would still go for Sanders in this case. He did win Wisconsin and Michigan as primary ones, but I just, honestly, like I said, Romney probably would win here. Maybe Bernie could pull it off in an upset, but I think the only reason he mainly won these in the 2016 primary was because of Hillary. Of course, her not being so popular. And Bernie kind of ran more of a populist campaign and didn't really focus on socialism too much. I mean, he kind of did, but he just typically had a little more populist appeal in these states, and I believe that's the only reason why he picked him off in 2016, but got defeated in 2020 by Biden here. So I think these actually will go Romney, especially being 2000, because I believe Bernie's just not going to be presented in a good light. He's definitely going to be probably destroyed in the debates. Might not be a so nice word for the Bernie bros, but that's just what's going to happen, honestly. Like I said, sorry to the Bernie bros watching, but it's just not going to happen. Well, Maine, however, will, because Sanders had great appeal here. Of course, being from the Northeast, I believe he could still win those. And here's my final map with Romney winning 326 to Sanders 211. If you agree or disagree, that's fine. Just comment below your thoughts. I thank you for watching. Subscribe and hit the bell for notifications if you haven't. And I'll see you next time.